What's up guys, Vespertine Fan 500 here with another Yu-Gi-Oh! Edison format video. Today I'm bringing you a little update to my Dream Frogs deck profile. Since the last video, I've taken it to YCS Anaheim, I've taken it to online locals, a couple in-person locals, and I've gotten a lot better. I've been playing the format for a little over a year now, and I'm just really happy to show you guys this deck. I've gotten a lot of rarity upgrades. I'll point them out as we go along, but to start, here is our main deck. Of course, we're playing 3 Substitoads. I play the Secret. Substitoad is just a monster that doesn't really need any explanation. The second he comes into the game, it kind of tips the duel in your favor. He's incredibly powerful. The second you see him plus another body, he can thin out your entire deck of all the frogs, put any frog monster that you need for the scenario on the field. He's just an absolute powerhouse, and this whole Dream Frogs deck is Substitoad centric, whereas a lot of other frog decks use it as an engine to get like a one-time dupe block out there, but Substitoad enables the entire deck, and I've got him here in Secret. I wanted to get the QCRs, but I just wasn't a fan of how they looked, and I think the Secrets just look so much cleaner overall. Of course, I'm playing 3 Swap Frogs. This guy's great. He gets your Treeborn Frog to the graveyard. He can serve as a body for Substitoad if you want to do a turn 1 combo. He can recycle Monarchs in your hand. This guy is incredible, and play him at no less than 3. I'm playing 3 Dupe Frogs. A lot of other frog decks are usually on 2 Dupe Frogs, but since we're playing Dream Frogs and it's more Substitoad centric, the 3rd Dupe Frog does often come up. A lot of times when I'm at low life points and I see a Substitoad, I'll just set up a triple dupe block and say, you're not going to touch my life points, I'm not going to let you, and I've won a lot of games that way. Dupe Frog, just on its own, is really powerful. I've noticed that even just a set Dupe Frog in games 2 and 3 can wall out something like a Fossil Dino on its own, which is really important because this deck can have trouble dealing with it. I wanted to also show off the OTS Supers that I picked up the other day. I think they look beautiful. I like that it shines when you dupe block your opponent. I just think that's incredible. I've got 2 Treeborn Frogs, and there's not much I need to say about Treeborn Frog. He obviously works well with Substitoad. He enables all the Monarchs in your deck. He's just a great guy overall. Something new, but for the utility frogs, I'm playing Flip-Flop Frog, Unifrog, and Des Frog. Originally I wasn't playing Flip-Flop Frog, but after a lot of testing, I realized that it's kind of foolish to cut Flip-Flop Frog. At worst, he sits in your hand as a discard cost, but at best, he just ends games on his own. And I think that at first I wasn't a big fan of him, and I had cut him, but I think that he's too important to not cut. Like, with these 3 utility frogs, you have monster removal, you have spell and trap removal, and obviously Des Frog for future combos with things like Fishboard Blaster, and he's just overall a great guy in the deck. Super powerful, even on his own. For the Monarchs, I've got 3 Caiuses. One of these Caiuses I got signed by Fraser Smith at YCS Anaheim. Shout out to him. Caius is a beast. I don't think he needs any explanation. A lot of great decks in Edison play him in multiples. He's just one of the best forms of removal, one of the best cards in the format. I'm playing 1 Ryza. There's a frog player at my locals who swears by playing 4 Monarchs, and I wanted to try it out in this deck because Dream Frogs is not usually Monarch heavy, but I wanted to see a Monarch. I found myself wanting to see a Monarch in every single one of my hands, and Ryza kind of helps to mitigate that, and you will see a Monarch when you need to. Even if he's not as good as Caius, he still has his own roles and function. I'm playing Dark Dust Spirit as another pseudo Monarch. I got the Hobby League rarity, which I'm really happy about. This is one of my favorite cards in the format. I absolutely love him. A lot of times he can be just a win condition, and what I like to do is hold on to him in my hand, give my opponent, force my opponent to try and deal with my board, and then once they do, bam, I slam a Dark Dust Spirit, and I can go for game that way. But also he's just good for clearing up messy boards that your opponent made, so you can eventually do a substitute combo next turn. I just think that he is main deck worthy. I don't see a matchup that he's necessarily bad against, and I've been yet to be proven otherwise. I play a Light and Darkness Dragon in the main deck. I love this card. I think he's amazing. He's great against Blackwings. He's great against a lot of decks. It's just nice that you can pretty much have an Appaloosa sort of card in Edison, and he's super easy to bring out in this deck. You'll see later on, but we are playing multiple control spells to be able to take advantage of the extra tribute, and Light and Darkness Dragon is just a beast. I have another one in the side deck, but you'll see that later. Just for general utility monsters, for my tuners, I'm playing Fishborg Blaster and Junk Synchron. You only really need one of each. I know I have run multiple Junk Synchrons in the past, but with 3 Avarices, you can reuse any utility monster you want to, and Junk Synchron isn't a monster you want to see in every hand, so he's just nice as a one-of. And Fishborg Blaster is insane. I think it only needs to be a one-of, but when he gets into the game becomes almost impossible for your opponent to win, because the amount of advantage this one card gives you is insane. I've tried other multiple copies. It just gets too bricky from there, and I really like the one-of. I play Sangan. Sangan's nice for searching Substitoad or searching really any monster in your deck. He searches pretty much a third of your entire deck, so whatever card you need. Sometimes you have half the Substitoad combo in your hand and you need a Swap Frog, or you just need the Substitoad or the Fishborg, and this guy literally searches all 3. He's awesome. I love Sangan. Obviously you have to side him out in certain matchups, but he's great in game 1 and in the main deck. For my defensive cards, I'm playing Gores and Battle Fader. I need no more or no less of these cards. They're incredible, but you don't want to see too many, and you're thinning your deck out a lot, so your deck is really just all the non-frog cards after your Substitoad combo, and what sucks is having a giant dupe block with a flip-flop frog, and then you really want to see a Monarch, but then you see a Battle Fader or Gores, which are the last monsters you want to see at the time. So the reason I'm only playing one of each is because you only need to see one of each, but it gets dangerous when you start to cut them, because out of nowhere there are a lot of decks that can just go for game even when you could have had game next turn. I'm playing 3 Pot of Avarice. This card is a beast in this deck. It's Pot of Greed times 2. You basically get to shuffle back any card in your graveyard that you want, and then Pot of Greed. It's insane. I think that Pot of Avarice should be in a lot more frog decks, but I also haven't experimented with a lot of other frog decks, but I just love the way it interacts with this deck. You're basically playing a game where you thin out your entire deck, wait for your opponent to break your dupe block, drop the Avarice, recycle it all, and then just rinse and repeat until you win. It makes this deck have a grind game that is longer than any other grind game in the format, from what I found through playing in things like ladder and tournaments. Pot of Avarice is just a great card. Even if you don't want to use it, or you don't want to hold on to it, you can also just use Substitoad to enable it as a Pot of Greed to get up in card advantage if you need to. So this is incredible, and I upgraded it to the supers for Steads, which I think look clean. I got Salvage as a one-of. Originally I wasn't playing it. I think that it's foolish to not play Salvage. Salvage increases the consistency, it increases the grind game, and it increases the overall strength of the deck, especially against things like DDV, which once we get to the side deck we will talk a lot about more. But this card, Pot of Avarice, is not a card you really want to see while you're under DDV, but this card is your best friend while you're under DDV. No matter what gets sent by DDV, you can just add back those water monsters with Salvage. I think it's great. I'm playing the 1 copy of 1-for-1. I know I'm playing the Altar. I'm doing it because of the Yusei mat. I just think it's fitting, and I like the cool duck guy. I don't remember the card's name, but 1-for-1's great. 1 card combo and a card. Discard a card and get Substitoad out there. I love him. I love this card. I've got Brain Control and 2 Econs, so basically 3 copies of Brain Control. So one of my friends at Locals was telling me to up to a 2nd Econ, so that's why I kind of got this mismatch rarity kind of game going on. I'm eventually going to upgrade this to this rarity, but I think that being able to take your opponent's monsters for things like tributes or honestly anything is just incredible. Enemy controller and brain control can enable game shots. These cards are just cards you don't want to be seen without. I'm playing one Soul Exchange in the main. I think it's too strong not to include. Soul Exchange is a card that can also deal with face down monsters, and so even if they feel safe about your Duke block because they're hiding behind a Raikou, you can just take their Raikou and turn it into a frog. And I just think that's so funny that Substitoad can turn your opponent's monsters into frogs. I think Soul Exchange is a must-have. Of course, I'm playing MST and Heavy. Staples, you need them. And then I dropped down to one Lightning Vortex in the main after the YCS. It kind of underperformed for me at Anaheim, but I still think it's a good card, and it's good against lots of matchups like Amaryllis, Lightsworn, Blackwings. Lightning Vortex is great, and I don't want to get rid of it. I've tried the main deck without Lightning Vortex. I've tried it in the side. It's just a card that I missed. And I'm only playing 3 traps in the main, and that's because we side into heavy traps. But I'm playing 2 Raigeki Breaks. You don't need any more in this deck, and Mirror Force. The reason I don't play Torrential is because I already have cards like Dark Dust Spirit and Lightning Vortex to do a similar thing. And usually I'm the one with more of a field presence than my opponent, and so I like to be able to deal with their monsters with things like Lightning Vortex or a Dark Dust Spirit when I need to use it. And also because I've noticed that because of the small amount of traps I have, whenever your opponent has Spoiler Trap removal, because everyone mains it, they're going to use it and they're probably going to see it. They're probably going to be holding on to it. So the chances that your Torrential even resolves are a little slim. So that's it for the main deck. And for the extra deck, I've got Armory Arm as the only level 4 synchro. This card, Elemental Hero Mariner, because I was experimenting with Instant Fusion. I just don't think this deck needs it, but he's just kind of here as a remnant. He's a cool looking card, and I don't need the extra slot anyways, so he's just a boss, you know? Then for the 5s, I have Magical Android, Junk Warrior, and Catastor. All 3 of these guys are great, no explanation really needed. You rarely go into Junk Warrior, but there's a lot of cool OTK things you can do by boosting it with cards like Swap Frog if you have a Substo play plus Junk Synchron. But I don't really see myself going into him a lot. These 2 are just generally more high value cards and are needed more often. For the 6s, which we go into a lot, these are the most popular cards I go into in my extra deck. Uruquizas, Goyo Guardian, and Brio. These 3 also kind of don't really need any explanation. They're kind of staples in the extra deck, but all 3 of them are great, and I love them. For the 7s, I've got Junk Archer. I never really go into him. Ancient Fairy Dragon, Black Rose Dragon, and Black Rose Dragon. That's all for the 7s. And the only one you really go into often is Black Rose Dragon, but these 2 can come up. You never know if you're going to miss game from a Junk Archer, so you might as well just have him. Better to have him and not need him than need him and not have him. For my 8s, I've got Stardust, Colossal, and RDA. I want him to be a Thought Ruler Archfiend, I just don't have the card yet, but these 2 are beasts. This obviously enables the Colossal Armory Arm OTK, which I have yet to pull off with this deck, crazily enough. I just think it's a little more uncommon in Dream Frogs than something like Forgs or other decks that are, it's a lot easier to put tuners and monsters to equal 8 and 4 on the field, like Fish OTK for example, which top YCS Anaheim. But I would love to do it, and I have missed the ball sometimes when I could have had it and I lost the game because I just didn't see the fact that I literally had Colossal Armory Arm OTK in my hand. But it's just something I'm getting better at. So the last card, the 15th card of the extra deck, is Mistworm. He's awesome. You just bring him out, bounce your opponent's whole field. He's just a beast, and I like him. I don't really go into him as often as I used to, because it is kind of neg to put all those monsters into one Mistworm, but he comes up, and when he does, it's great. So that's all for the extra deck and the main deck. Now to move on to the side deck. I have Vanity's Ruler, Light and Darkness Dragon, an extra copy, and then 2 Vanity's Fiend, and then a Jinzo. These are all my tributes that I can swap in and out of. I'm not gonna lie, the Vanity's Ruler is kind of there just because I managed to get my hands on the first Ed ulti, but he's great in the Frog Mirror, and I have summoned him a couple times and gotten game through him. But usually what I side into are Lad, Vanity's Fiend, and then Jinzo. Jinzo is kind of a sleeper pick. People sleep on Jinzo to this day, but the amount of games I have stolen from Blackwings, or even like whatever, like Winged Rhinos jank someone is bringing to locals, it's insane. Jinzo is nice, and I've tried side decks without him, and it just sucks to be like, oh, like I would want to side Jinzo into this matchup, and then look into your side deck and remember you removed him. So I'm not going to take Jinzo out. I think he's a beast, and I think he's great. This is kind of like my Deck Devastation Virus squad, cards that get over Deck Devastation Virus, and I bring in whenever I know the opponent's on Deck Devastation Virus. Breaker, Kaiku, and DD Assailant. They're all great, and what I've noticed about the Dreamfrog deck is that two things I believed to be true at the beginning when I first started playing this deck that I realized are now not true. One, this deck has a bad matchup against Blackwings. As I've grown more competent with the deck and learned more about it, I've realized that I'm actually the most confident with my matchups against Blackwings and Vayu, and it's because I have such a strong game plan when it comes to Deck Devastation Virus. Substitute is great for getting your Deck Devastation Virus targets out of your deck and post games where you can control the kind of monsters that would get deck devied. Like you can get rid of your Sangan, your Battle Fader, your Junk Synchron, replace it with these guys, and all of a sudden a deck devy hits for 0 cards. I've had it happen so many times in the past where my opponent deck devies me and you see a smirk on their face like, oh, the game's over, huh? And then they just manage to keep not hitting any cards because you already managed to substitute in, and obviously you can hold on to your Avarices until DDV is over, and then you just win the game from there. So these guys, I call them my DDV squad because I bring them in against that deck, and there are decks that play DDV, and they're all great. I only side one spell. It's a second copy of Soul Exchange. Usually I side it in going second, or decks that are super weak against Soul Exchange, like GBs, for example. I've already explained Soul Exchange, but for the traps, I side heavy into traps. My trap count actually, at the very least, doubles against certain matchups, just because they take out their spell and trap removal, and so I'm able to side heavy more into traps and not have them punished as more. But I'm playing 2 Dust Tornado just because they're extra copies of MST and you need them. 2 D Prison, and then I am also playing Divine Wrath and Torrential to round out the whole side deck. Divine Wrath is kind of a saucy tech. I know a lot of people are not too fond of it, but my friend at Locals swears by it, and so I'm kind of experimenting with him with it, figuring it out, you know. It's just kind of an extra discard trap, but it's like a discard solemn, and I have yet to successfully pull it off because it's a one-of in the side deck, but when it comes up, I'm sure we'll see how it performs. That was all for my Dream Frogs 2 deck list. If you guys have any suggestions or any comments, let me know. I'm fully open to hearing constructive criticism because, like I said, I have only been playing this format for around a year. But if you stayed until the end, I really appreciate it. And thanks for watching. Talk to you guys later. Bye.